Morning, everybody. All right, so hopefully my audio is better than the last video. I've been getting a lot of flack about having subpar audio. Anyway, let's dive in. OpenAI, the company that is responsible for, I don't know, the mission of which company originally when it set out was to deliver AI that was open to everybody, AI that was open to all, finally delivered some competent open weight AI models, namely the GPT-OSS 120 GB and the GPT-OSS 20 GB. Let's get into it. What does this mean? Open weights versus open source versus truly open. What's all the hoopla about? Well, ironically, OpenAI has sort of been one of the last companies in the startup space. Well, AI startups are kind of bigger, getting bigger than behemoths or bigger than the incumbents these days, right? I feel like OpenAI has more of a market share than even Meta or Google's AI models. So startup, incumbents, anyway, let's just bundle them all under big tech. Big tech companies have been delivering open weights models. This is not new, right? Meta, their Llama series of models, Llama 2, 3, 4, have open weights versions. Then you have Microsoft offering the Phi family of models. You have DeepSeek's R1, which was made available completely open weights. I think DeepSeek was actually open source. We'll get into the difference in a bit. So OpenAI, arguably the company that in name and in essence has the mission of making AI open and free for all, is super late to the punch, right? Let's get into it. What are these models? How do these models work? How can you benefit? What does it mean for you as a developer or even as an enthusiast, even as an AI enthusiast tuning in? What does this mean for you, right? So one of the challenges with just coming across open weights AI models is just because the weights are made available to you and you can tune them, you can sort of get under the hood and tune the weights, doesn't mean you can use them, right? Case in point, even the less capable of these two models, the GPT-OSS 20 GB, is a model that you're going to need a GPU-capable laptop to run on. How many of us has a GPU-capable laptop? Okay, maybe some of you do. Maybe some of you are dev nerds, but there's still going to be a performance bottleneck. Like maybe for a hobbyist project, you're going to be able to get away with just running inference on your, I don't know, NVIDIA RTX 4070 GPU-powered laptop. It's going to be pretty slow still, and it's not going to be scalable, right? But let's get into what these two models offer. So the GPT-OSS 120 GB has about it's a pretty sizable model. Its performance compares close to GPT-4o Mini, which is pretty amazing, right? And then the GPT-OSS 20 GB version is a smaller model, which arguably Sam Altman has said can run on a mobile device, unless your mobile device comes ready with a super beefed up processor. I don't really see how that's going to be useful. But yeah, I think in terms of performance, these models are pretty amazing. But they are not truly open source. They're open weights. And that does mean that they're going to be able to be used by a lot of startups. They're going to be used by a lot of small teams. They're going to be used by small practices that need a very privacy-first solution, right? Open weights basically means that the model's architecture, how the model is developed, the sort of underlying technology behind the model architecture, behind the models, is all transparent. You can see all of the weights in the model because at the end of the day, these AI models are basically gigantic neural nets where you have nodes and you have weighted connections between the nodes. So an open weights model basically gives you full visibility to all of these weights. And you can fine-tune these weights as you need to maybe custom fit these models to your particular use case, right? But if you do have a particular use case, you might as well just get a GPU rig or rent out a small server, like a small, even virtual servers or machine images in order to faithfully deploy these models and scale them. What these models are not, however, are open source. In order for models to be truly open source, the training data, the methods that you've used to train these models need to be made fully available. And if OpenAI basically make their training methods would be able to take the final product with the open weights and given enough resources, basically develop their own, right? Which again is not an easy process. Even if you were given all the training data and the training methods, you couldn't just come up with a model that would match the performance, but you would come pretty close. So in a lot of ways, there is a dark side to making models open weights, or even open source, or even open weights, to be honest, because I think that you could technically take a open weights AI model and tweak it or jailbreak it in order to give you information that wouldn't be safe in the hands of everybody, right? Or if it's open source, you could actually train a model like that from scratch. And it's a pretty responsible question to ask if we should be doing that, or we should be just giving that power in the hands of everybody. I don't know the answer to that. I think there's arguments to be made on both sides. At the end of the day, these models were made using our data, right? And to be fair, our data was used without our permission. Like, nobody signed a form saying like, hey, all of my online footprint may be used in the training of these models. Any book that I've written, any LinkedIn post that I've made, any Medium article that I've put together may be used at no royalty payment, with no royalty payments or any kind of remuneration given to me, for the benefit of these big tech companies, which are raking it in right now in terms of investment money. I mean, not so much in terms of subscription revenue, but you get the picture. You're not sharing any of that profit, right? So maybe these models, maybe everybody gets to share in on what they've helped build, right? There's arguments to be made on both sides of the aisle, but here's where, as on a virtual private cloud that you can rent out, maybe on your favorite cloud provider, GCP, AWS, Azure, whatever, and in that way you can have like a protected model instance that you can use specifically for your use cases. That could be one way to do this. However, renting out GPUs or renting out machines that have access to GPUs, and specifically machines that have dedicated VRAM, is going to be quite expensive, right? Even if you're getting the really subsidized rates of big-time cloud providers like AWS. And also, I think, at that point, like, if you don't really care about the privacy, you may be better off just using API access programmatically from any of the proprietary models that OpenAI offers. If you really want it, like, this is an opportunity for people that have a good sense of networking, that understand model architectures, understand cloud deployments. This is a really good opportunity for engineers that understand this to kind of ship a solution to privacy-focused and very regulated companies. If you go to hospital networks or legal firms or even hedge funds, if you have that kind of connection, and if you're able to offer them an on-premise AI model, an on-premise version of these AI models, where maybe you set them up with a GPU rig that houses, like a GPT-OSS 120 GB, provisioned with the requisite amount of memory and RAM, like that shouldn't be too expensive hardware-wise. You give them an on-prem solution, and then you tell them like, hey, this is going to give you performance that is on par with GPT-4o mini, and you're going to have retrieval augmented generation coupled to this solution, where the AI model is going to maybe make a call to another server that is going to be up to date with any relevant information that is beyond the solution. You're going to ship the GPU rig and a on-premise memory store, a database store or a vector database store that continuously on a cron schedule, maybe daily, maybe hourly, does a news aggregation. If it's hedge fund, maybe they do like if it's a trading firm, maybe they do financial news aggregations or earnings call transcripts and other kinds of documents, and basically keeps a live and fresh data store of all the relevant financial news. And this on-premise GPU rig that houses your OpenAI model is able to make calls just to that vector store in order to get the information that it needs to take into account this new relevant information in the responses it gives back. You can ship this on-premise solution to hedge funds, to trading firms, to hospitals, and make sure that the data never leaves. The questions they ask to these models never leaves the premises of their offices or the hospital networks, and in that way, they still hit all the checkboxes that they are bound to in a regulated environment. Another easier, sort of more software-focused version of this could be you could have a cloud package, where you help companies set up a virtual private cloud with its collection of machine images deployed, or EC2 instances, or your favorite sort of virtual computers, virtual machines on your favorite cloud provider, and you set up that virtual private cloud and you deploy the open source version of these, the open weights version of these OpenAI models, and you set up the same sort of ChromoDB or Pinecone vector database that is kept up to date with the latest and greatest information that is going to be relevant for them. Maybe this is patient healthcare records. Maybe this is financial news articles, whatever the industry they're in. And in that way, you could truly ship a solution that is sort of on cloud, but on their own private cloud, and still uses a open weights AI model. The benefit of this is that a regulated environment isn't necessarily going to let them send critical data outside of their virtual private cloud onto a remote server that is owned by OpenAI or Microsoft or Meta or Google, which is what happens when you talk to ChatGPT, which is what happens when you use API to access these proprietary models. So there's really a great opportunity for people that understand networking, cloud engineering, and LLMs to ship these tailor-made solutions to companies in regulated industries. So the people that are going to be benefiting from the release of these OpenAI models are mostly going to be these regulated industries and or companies that operate in a regulated space. Because, I can't think of retail or consumer-grade applications or use cases that people would just be like, you know what, instead of just chatting with O3 on ChatGPT, I am going to set up or spin up a custom version, a fine-tuned version of GPT-OSS 120GB on this really beefed up laptop I own, right? I just don't see that happening. Anyway, if you have questions about any of this, please let me know in the comments. Let me know how my audio is sounding today. I ditched the headphones that I got a lot of feedback on. Again, still new to streaming, still learning what makes for a good quality stream along the way. So would really appreciate the engagement, your comments. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. I'm trying to do